Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta is just now arriving in Port-au-Prince. Sanjay, give us an idea of what you're seeing and what you expect the first need will be to be addressed by other members of the medical community that will soon be on the ground.
Well, the first part is certainly some good news, and that is that we were able to land at the airport. As you may have heard, for some time there's been some conflicting reports on that and real question as to whether or not this airport was even up and running. I'm looking at the control tower now, which is standing with all the glass that has been busted out of that tower, the steel beams on top. So they're using some other measures to get airplanes landing. That's very important, as you might imagine, because I can see a big relief plane as well landing just off in the distance, starting to bring in some supplies, which, in terms of pain medications, medical supplies, food, water, all of that on big pallets starting to be lifted off that plane. We've been talking to a lot of our contacts on the ground over here already, including folks from some of the big medical relief organizations. I can tell you, having covered stories like this before, they're very much in the initial stages of all this. They themselves trying to get organized, trying to account for all their people, trying to establish their own security. They're describing situations where their vehicles are being mobbed by people who are desperate for supplies. There are also lots of medical necessities in the streets without hospitals or even some sort of medical facility at this time. So some immediate needs have certainly been identified medically, but there does seem to be at least a few relief organizations already on the ground here.
Well, Sanjay, give me an idea. Well, some of these organizations that are on the ground, they plan to put in place some sort of like temporary, almost like triage units. Describe for me what those would look like and if those things would help address some of the greatest needs right now as people are being pulled from the rubble with other people's bare hands.
No question, and this is very reminiscent of what we've seen in war zone settings, where the real goal, more than anything else, is to try and take some facilities to the patients, to the potential patients, as opposed to trying to evacuate patients to hospitals. Hospitals, if they have any capability at all, just aren't equipped to be able to handle the volume of patients. So they look like tents. They're actual triage tents. They can take care of people's immediate needs and even perform some minor to moderate surgery within those tents as well. So to try and describe it, hopefully be able to show it to you later, you see these tents popping up in various places around the city, doctors starting to bring patients and nurses going out and establishing who needs what and trying to get care as quickly as possible. That's what it's starting to look like. And, again, it is very reminiscent of what I saw in Afghanistan just a few months ago and in Iraq a short time before that.
And I know a lot of folks who are victims are relieved to see these medical units come in, but at the same time, you just mentioned for a moment that some people are mobbing these first responders. They see the trucks, they see generators, they see packaging, and they think there's something in there for me. And describe for me, what you mean by them mobbing these first responders and how that is presenting yet a new layer of difficulty for these first responders.
Yeah, this is coming straight from Doctors Without Borders, which again has had a presence here in Haiti and specifically Port-au-Prince for some time. It's exactly what you said. There are lots of supplies that they are trying to bring to areas that are needing it the most. However, right now, as far as we can tell, the demand is outstripping the supply. So people are trying to get their hands on everything, from gasoline to water to specific medical supplies. There are patients who cannot get operations that they need. Pain medications, for example, are something that's in huge demand as well. So that's really what's happening here. And what the Doctors Without Borders are describing is trying to establish some sort of secure perimeter around these tents so they can get these patients taken care of safely and they can be safe themselves.
And then a lot of those clinics and facilities that Doctors Without Borders had in place prior to this earthquake, many of those structures are devastated, inoperable. Do the Doctors Without Borders staffers, volunteers, do they feel frustrated about not being able to tend to those in need right now while they wait for their support to arrive?
Remarkably, this is so early on in this whole process that they are truly just trying to get a sort of an accounting of their own staff members right now. This is a
and how do they do that?
Well, it's tough because, as we're here, I'm talking to you on a satellite phone. It took us a while to get that signal up. There's hardly any cell service whatsoever. We're certainly not getting any. So simply communicating, one group of doctors, nurses to another group is extremely difficult. The roads, many of them difficult to travel because of what has happened as a result of the earthquake. So it's tough. I mean, a lot of it's sort of being transmitted word of mouth right now. Sometimes email comes up, but that's, this is so early on in the process that simply accounting for their own, nearly 800 people is obviously one of the first steps. And then going from there, trying to establish what those people are going to do, where they're going to be deployed, how they're going to set up these tents, and where the need is greatest is sort of the next step. As we are flying into Port-au-Prince, again, the airport, I'm looking at it right now, looks pretty good. There's some glass busted out of some of the buildings, some of the steel beams. Some of the hillsides that we crossed over looked okay as well. So there seems to be a fairly focal, if you will, localized area of extreme damage. So I think you're going to see a lot of these medical relief organizations start to descend together in one area. And that's good news in terms of mobilizing resources, but the devastation in that one area is tremendous.
Yeah, and of course, as these units then try to traverse, some other areas of Port-au-Prince to get to the more difficult to reach folks, I guess, the clock ticking, it's going to be very difficult to try to carry out their best efforts to reach people, to try to find survivors, because many people are trapped beneath the rubble, and of course the roads are going to be a difficult thing in which to try to get through.
From a medical perspective, they will see just about every injury you might imagine. Injuries. Also, a lot of homes have home gasoline systems for heating and for cooking. So we've heard that those exploded, some of them causing burn injuries. You have penetrating injuries as a result of the rubble actually penetrating people's bodies. So there are all sorts of different injuries occurring here, and trying to figure out what they are, and again, just almost war zone triage seems to be what's happening.
Okay, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Chief Medical Correspondent for CNN, there on the ground in Port-au-Prince, giving us his firsthand view of the efforts underway and what may be to come. Thanks so much, Sanjay. Some of the other